It's amazing that Tommy set me up speaking to you because I've admired your work for ages, man, and
well,
what you've done.
The admiration does not compare to what we feel about what y'all are doing. I mean, my God.
Where are you based?
We're in New Orleans, Louisiana.
Amazing. So, I've been there. I've been
nice.
there.
Well, you should, next time you're in New Orleans, you come by, you say hello.
I would love that, mate. I would love that.
Can I ask you a couple things for current affairs?
Please.
Yeah. Can you tell us, your background and your journey to the flotilla, how you ended up, on this boat somewhere in the Mediterranean en route to Gaza?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so my family are Palestinian, from my dad's family, and I can talk to you briefly about their predicament. They've lived in East Jerusalem in the Mount of Olives for at least 150 years. They can trace the family ancestry back that far. And where it starts to come in more in focus as a kind of family history is around 1948, so the Nakba. My grandfather, my dad's dad, was shot in the head by the Palmach, so one of the terror gangs that later formed the IDF. And miraculously, he survived. I mean, by some insane alchemy, he didn't die. But basically, he was transferred to a field hospital that the Red Crescent were operating just outside Jaffa. And they ambushed the hospital and they tried to kill him again in the hospital. And he escaped again. So that's my grandfather. He was, as I say, shot in the head. Must have been a pretty crappy gun. I don't know, because it didn't kill him, but it did create a big kind of chasm in his skull. And my dad, I never met my grandfather. My dad told me a few years back that the resources that they had at the Red Crescent Hospital, field hospital outside Jaffa, were so primitive that they had to stitch a bit of plastic under his skull, and you could see it moving every time he breathed. He lived another 50 years. He died in 1998, but it moved every time he breathed. So then my dad's generation, one of my uncles was part of the kind of secular Palestinian resistance movements in the 1970s. I say secular, you know what I mean, they were Muslim, but their movement was political, One day he was disappeared by Mossad and nobody ever heard from him again. So the strong assumption, of course, is he was murdered. But it's my dad's oldest brother and his son. It's really heartbreaking. Again, I never met him. It was the early 80s. I was born in the late 80s, but I met his son years later. And his son said to me, I said to him, what was our grandma like? Because I never met my dad's mum. Yeah. And he said, whenever I was around her, all she would do is cry because I reminded her so much of her eldest son, which his dad.
Yeah.
And then, my own generation, I suppose I should bring the story up to date. My brother was thrown in prison when he was 12 for throwing stones at tanks as part of the Second Intifada in 2000. Rounded up, locked up, and has subsequently barely ever made it out of Israeli jail. I mean, he comes out, they throw him back in for something arbitrary or something political. He's developed schizophrenia. He's very sick, he's very, very ill. And they won't treat him. So most of his life has been spent inside Israeli prisons. And he's 32 now, and he first went in when he was 12. So all of those things, I guess you could say, Nathan, they compel me.
Yeah, well, so what's your background then? I mean, you're clearly British to some degree.
Everyone on this boat keeps saying to me, you are the most British-sounding Palestinian you've ever met. Yeah. So, in a nutshell, my mum is French, but she moved to England when she was really young, before I was born. She left home and went traveling to the Middle East. She met my dad. They had a relationship. I'm a bastard child. I mean, it was completely out of wedlock, and but actually the whole community in the Mount of Olives, she says, really welcomed her. Then she didn't want to stay. He didn't want to leave. So I was raised in England by my mum. basically.
Okay.
He went on, my dad went on to have 6 more children. And that's why I have this kind of strange, diaspora story.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think what's interesting, talking to you hearing this, is the degree to which, you know, the entire course of your family's life, of your existence, you know, everything is shaped, determined, you know, by events in 1948. People talk about these things like they're past. Like they're over. I mean, obviously, a lot of the Israeli rhetoric is, you know, why can't the Palestinian refugees just get over it? And it's like, you know, the way in which, you know, people's lives are so molded by this moment in history.
Right, absolutely. And, you know, for any Zionist who says that, they ought to consider the irony of their own situation, which is that they claim that the Torah is a land deed. You know, so
they didn't get over it for 2,000 years.
Right, exactly. They didn't get over it for 2,000 years. So you know,
they wanted to return.
Yeah, exactly. So my own family, who still live there, for God's sake, they're supposed to get over it and move away or something.
Yeah.
And anyway, so the irony shouldn't be lost on anybody, but I fear.
But the flotilla. Right. So, I mean, you know, you are raised as British-Palestinian. But obviously, as we've mentioned, you know, you can choose to be British. You can choose to look away. But obviously you have felt called, as Tommy felt called, as a Jewish American who felt a responsibility. And now the both of you are together, he a Jewish American, you Palestinian British, on this flotilla. Tell me a little bit. I mean, you obviously knew when you signed up for this that this was a risk to your life. Tell me a little bit about the decision that brought you here.
Well, first of all, there's a beautiful kind of synergy with Tommy, and I think it's because of the kind of parallel track to the same place.
Yeah,
you know?
I noticed that immediately.
And we've arrived at the same destination, but from, you know, opposite directions, and that's poignant to me. It's very poignant to me, and I think it is to him too. So I think I found myself, Nathan, day after day after day throughout the genocide, feeling increasingly like I wasn't doing enough. And I have a smallish public platform. I work for an organization called Novara Media. You know, I'm a front camera person for them. So there we go. And we love you back. But I started to feel like it's great. It's great to speak. It's great to speak in public. It's great to talk. I'm privileged because I have a platform. I get to air my opinions. But I was feeling a great deal of kind of frustration that I wasn't able to do more.
Yeah.
And I kind of thought, well, what's the next thing I need to do? I need to probably put myself on the line. I need to put my body on the line. I need to take myself physically and put myself not exactly where Gazans are, because I'm not doing this to be reckless. None of us wants to be killed. All of us wants to go back safely to our loved ones. But I think there are multiple functions to what we're doing. Obviously, bringing aid, that's one. There's the symbolism of drawing attention via the flotilla to Gaza. But there's something else which is a bit more abstract. So bear with me. It's like you sit down and you watch the most inhuman violence being meted out against a defenseless population day after day after day after day. And among the many things that induces in the human psyche, one of them is tremendous disempowerment, a sense that the world is so deeply unjust. We can see every nook and cranny of the hypocrisy operating behind these actions, but we can't do anything. Yeah. Not only can we not stop it, we can't do anything. And so there's a great danger in that scenario that people just retreat further and further into themselves and into atomization and into, sort of apathy and nihilism. And I think by showing that actually Gaza isn't just this abstract place that we hear about only in the context of suffering and trauma and horror, it's a real place in the world. It's a real place that we can physically get to. I think there's something in that, almost phenomenologically, it connects the dots for people. That there are things that you can do beyond the standard things, which are still really important, like marching, signing petitions, and so on. There are other things.
It would also explain why you're seeing your fleet of little boats with a motley assortment of people is seen as such a threat. I mean, if you can penetrate that sense of powerless, I mean, if you succeeded in your mission, I think Israel is fairly determined to make sure that nobody manages to land on the beaches of Gaza and bring aid. But if you did, the moment that resulted would be such a thing of beauty and humanity, right? Where the people of Gaza met with these people who had come to them to deliver them aid. It would be so obvious what right and wrong in this conflict is. And I suspect that's a big part of what Israel is trying to prevent. I mean, they understand what it would look like if all of these people from all over the world managed to came and give baby formula and to bring food. And so, you're attempting something that, if it succeeded, would be such a powerful moment of right. Humanity.
Right. And absolutely. And, Israel for a very long time could subsist and survive and indeed thrive on the notion that it was more than just a nation state that had the right to exist. It managed to convince so much of the world for so long that it was a romantic place.
Hey.
Is David Adler.
Hey, David Adler. Hey, current affairs contributor David Adler.
There you go. Good friend of the show and of the outlet.
For a writer for a magazine. Well.
He's hugely intellectually promiscuous because he does a lot for Novara as well.
Well, you tell him, now that you've got him captive on a boat, you tell him that he needs to write for our magazine again.
Well, I will. You know what? And you know what, Nathan? I would love to write for a magazine.
Oh, please, by all means. Yeah, we're always looking. We'd love to do that. Okay. Yes, sorry. You were saying Israel managed to convince the world for so long. Yeah.
Israel had managed to convince the world for so long that it was a romantic place and it was an idealistic place. That it was a kind of, there was this Hasbara dream factory that worked so well. Israel almost didn't need to resort to being a big bad bully in public. It just did its kind of lynchings and whatever of Palestinians behind closed doors, and then it projected this wonderful image to the world, liberal beacon of democracy in a whatever Hobbesian part of the world. But that obviously fell to pieces starting in the 1980s, and now the wheels have completely come off. Yeah. And the whole world, and of course there are still outposts, there are still hardcore Zionists, but the whole world understands what Israel is about now, and as a result, the flip side of that, the corollary of that, supports, broadly speaking, some form of Palestinian statehood and control over destiny and so on. And so you're right when you say that us landing on that beach and bringing teddy bears and baby formula and medicines and food to these genocided people is, Israel knows it's beyond the final nail in the coffin for it. I mean, it's surviving on splinters at this point.
Yeah. No, that's right. I mean, the flotilla is so important, and I want to just return to this idea of, because you were talking about people's sense of powerlessness, and Tommy and I were discussing this too, and we were discussing the way in which powerful people need to convince you can do nothing. It's a very convenient way for them to get away with everything because there's no opposition if everyone just feels hopeless. So I would assume that the people who are listening to our conversation, who have heard what I discussed with Tommy, now if they're still here by this point, roughly share the moral stance that the genocide needs to be stopped, that the flotilla needs to succeed and not be intercepted, and but let me ask you what your message, because I asked Tommy this, what your message to people who feel powerless is. What do you want them to do? What do you want them, when they ask you, yes, I totally agree with you, but all I feel like I can do is leave a supportive comment under the video. What do you tell them?
I tell them, first of all, supportive comments are very welcome. And, every drop makes up an ocean. But genuinely, powerlessness, and you've written brilliantly on this, Nathan, many times. Powerlessness is an illusion. It's a trick of the light that's performed over and over again by very powerful forces. No one doubts that power exists and that it's concentrated and that people are limited in what they can do in given situations. And of course, there are collective action problems, all the rest of it. But I would say now that there is a pretty large pro-Palestine infrastructure in most countries in the West. Pretty large, and it's growing. Be part of that infrastructure in some fashion or another. And, that might take the form of, not everybody can get on a flotilla. Not everybody can do that. And I totally get it. And I'm not, I don't think, well, that's the litmus test. And if you don't do that, then you're not, sufficiently, you can't look your children in the eyes and say, what you did during the genocide was you did X, Y, or Z. No, everybody has a different role to play. My mother, for example, could never get on the flotilla. Her health wouldn't permit it. However, she is one of the most dedicated, she's French, she's not from the Palestinian side, but she's one of the most dedicated pro-Palestine activists I've ever met in my life, and I've met many of them. And what she does is she organizes with her local pro-Palestine caucus in our hometown, and she has, for 20 odd years, she's led campaigns to boycott shops that are stocking Israeli goods and so on. So I think being part of BDS, being part of those caucuses, taking an active role in as many of those things as you possibly can, those are wonderful contributions to a growing international civil society movement, which might seem frivolous compared to, Israel's war machine and the kind of meat grinder that it feeds Palestinians into day after day. But it's not. It's the reason that we see so much pressure being put on governments, and governments, however meretricious it is, governments being forced to recognize Palestinian state.
Yeah.
And if they're doing that today, if we keep putting pressure on them,
that's right.
If they're doing that today, tomorrow they'll suspend arms licenses and so on.
Well, Kieran, I keep thinking, all right, if that's what they're willing to do with a movement this size, what if it was 10 times larger? What if it was 20 times larger? What if the pressure increased? As you say, obviously they're in part recognizing a Palestinian state because it doesn't require any material commitments to do very much. Nevertheless, it was resisted for so long, and it is a remarkable shift, and you can tell that it's not totally meaningless by the fact that Israel is so angry about it and denouncing it with such absolute vehemence. So we shouldn't see it as nothing. I mean, it is a victory to have the Western countries finally join the rest of the world in recognizing the basic fact that, can we at least agree that Palestine exists?
Yeah, exactly. And it's exactly, and it's the byproduct of social pressure. First of all, Palestinians' refusal to vanish. Very easily, we could have various permutations of history or various contingencies arraying themselves slightly differently. Palestine could have vanished as a kind of viable entity, a viable polity, a viable entity. It could have happened. We could have gone into the ash can of history, but we didn't. We refused to. And that's, first and foremost, tremendous credit to Palestinians. But Palestinians couldn't do it alone. And so it had to be a kind of ripple effect, which then very slowly spread to countries around the world and civil society around the world. And that's what we're seeing now, is that exerted pressure from below on institutions, on powerful institutions, which have signally failed to prevent the genocide, and in many cases aided and abetted it. Nonetheless, they are feeling that pressure feeding up and translating through from civil society.
Yeah.
And we need to build on that. We need to keep pushing, because that's the only way that things are going to get better. Palestinians on the ground, the term facts on the ground, the facts on the ground dictate that everything has got worse for Palestinians. If you just look at that unit of analysis, you're going to see, I mean, it's the most
Indeed.
Traumatizing, depressing trajectory. However, if you look outside, the picture is completely different. It's a complete inversion of that, where 25, 30, 40 years ago, nobody knew that Palestinians existed and thought that Israel was this beacon of romantic idealism. That has completely shifted, and that will start to bear tangible results.
And I mean, in the United States, Tommy and I were discussing, massive shifts in public opinion on Israel of the kind that we've never seen in my lifetime. I've been sort of shocked to see Democratic candidates who are fairly mainstream coming out and touting as a point of pride that they don't accept AIPAC money. Now, I mean, I that's unimaginable to me. I mean, Graham Plattner in Maine, the biggest applause line he receives at his events is where he says, "I won't take a dime from AIPAC." And I'm looking at this going, this is a new political reality.
Yeah. It's amazing. And, you can tell me far more than I can tell you, Nathan, about the sort of the inner workings of AIPAC. Of course, in Britain, those of us who are committed to Palestinian justice and so on, we're very familiar with AIPAC. We're very familiar with the kind of the poisonous influence it exerts on American politics. But the sort of de-alignment between AIPAC and politicians now, the sort of public de-alignment, is something which is quite unprecedented, right?
Yeah.
And it's almost becoming a mark or badge of honor for politicians in a way that maybe it wasn't 10, 15 years ago.
Yeah. Well, look, I think we have to conclude here. Obviously, I would love it if you'd contribute to current affairs in the future, and let's check in. How long is it now until you hope to arrive in Gaza?
Well, so in 5 days' time, if we carry on going at this speed, which isn't particularly fast because we've got to stay with the whole fleet, but if we carry on going at this speed, in 5 days' time, we'll arrive at the so-called Orange Line. Now, the Orange Line is 150 nautical miles out from the coast of Gaza. And it's called the Orange Line because beyond it, Israel has been known to intercept boats in international waters, kidnap. I mean, it's obviously a violation of international law. I don't know if your listeners or viewers know, Nathan, or if you know, I didn't until yesterday, but national waters extend only as far as 12 nautical miles from the coast. So that gives you an idea of how far Israel is willing to stray outside of its national waters into international waters. Yes.
Yeah.
To kidnap boats in international waters.
Well, yeah.
So, in answer to your question, 5 days to the Orange Line. And if we were to make it to the shores of Gaza without interception from Israel, it's a big if, but it would be about 7 days from now.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we will certainly be monitoring your progress closely. And we would encourage our listeners and readers to do the same, and U.S. media obviously is not going to do much good coverage of the flotilla. Is there somewhere people can get updates from you? How should people follow for updates?
Okay, so I don't want to plug myself, but I have been giving very regular updates. So
great.
If people can go on my Twitter, Kieran Andrieu, KIERAN, ANDRIEU. I promise that's not a personal plug. It's just that
that's the place to go.
I'm sort of trying to my girlfriend is on my back all the time, telling me I need to put 3 or 4 tweets up a day. So
Do it.
I'm doing my best. But the other thing you could do is Tommy is giving pretty regular updates as well on his Instagram. Quentin Quarantino. And then also Global Sumud Flotilla has got its own Twitter page and its own Instagram page, and you can get regular updates from them as well.
All right.
So and Novara Media, Novara's giving a lot.
Novara's excellent. Yes, I will add everything Novara does is fantastic. You got such a great team of people. You're really giving one of the only little beacons of hope there in British media, which is generally pretty dire. British media.
That means a lot. That means a lot coming from you, Dave. Thanks so much.
Novara's awesome. All right, well, Kieran, it's great to meet you. Thank you so much for
great to meet you, my friend.
Best of luck. Stay safe out there.
It's been an honor. Thank you, Nathan. Cheers.
All right. We'll see you. So you're used to hearing me tell you to subscribe to the print edition of Current Affairs, and you should subscribe to the print edition of Current Affairs. But today I want to talk to you about someone else you should support, because there are friends over at the Majority Report. I find it really, really hard to find intelligent, informed commentary on the news. There's so much bullshit in the world. And we've gotten to know and become friends with the Majority Report because we just really respect the work that they do over there. Sam and Emma and the staff there do fantastic research. They know what they're talking about. They focus on important topics. I've been on their show, and, at a time when so many supposedly independent media outlets are compromised by outside interests, they're not, we're not, and so we stick together. Majority Report is really a beacon of genuine free thought. So we are delighted to partner with them. Their kind of outlet is really rare and special and needs to be supported. And so they've agreed to give our readers a deal on memberships there, and we're giving their listeners, in exchange, a deal on Current Affairs subscription. So they are offering, Majority Report with Sam Cedar, offering discount rate for membership there to all Current Affairs readers, $5 a month for 6 months, and you can use the code Current Affairs at checkout. And so your membership there keeps the Majority Report possible. It'll give you access to their daily fun half, to all bonus content, commercial free, 5 days a week, first access to discounted live show tickets, first access to limited run merch. So if you join with that special discounted rate, you can support the Majority Report with Sam Cedar. They are unbought and unbossed. And as I say, just personally, we really like them. We really respect them. And it's been great to get to work with them. So support Current Affairs, read Current Affairs, but also support all independent left media. And Majority Report is a great example of that.